Where do I get the eighth
I don't
digit?
know how we'll put that down.
Oh, I see, so that I have to put a 02 to make December, okay. Okay, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guys, you know. My kids have a cheap magic set that has all kinds of tricks that, yeah, interesting. 12th of the century. Interesting day.
And it appears that we are live.
Very good. Welcome to December 2nd Planning Commission meeting. We'll start with roll call.
Chair Pevsner.
Here.
Vice Chair Dennison.
Here.
Commissioners Dallas.
Here.
Hutt. Here. And Spears.
Present.
Thank you. Move on to the approval of the agenda.
Move we approve as presented.
Second?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We'll go on to the approval of the minutes of November 18th. I had nothing.
Move we accept as presented.
You good, Peggy? Do you have anything? Anybody have changes? Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Council Liaison Report. Councilman Parker.
Since we haven't had a city council meeting since our last planning commission meeting, there isn't a whole lot to report. Although, as is city tradition, we will reorg at our next meeting next Tuesday, and we'll select new committees to represent, or new commissions to represent in January. So this may be my last time as liaison to the Planning Commission if other people want to step up to it. And I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure working with all of you. I have learned a tremendous amount. You guys are a dedicated and very smart group, and I appreciate your service to the city. So we'll see what happens in January, but if not, thank you guys for your service and for educating me.
All right, thank you. Great. All right, moving on. Community input. This is the time when the public may come up and speak on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. We welcome your input and participation. We have 5 minutes so that we can move the meeting along, although there's not that many people here, so go ahead.
All right. Good evening. My name is Lisa Puleo, and I live at 672 West Highland, across the street from the Alverno Gate. I have owned my home for 25 years. I represent the Coalition of Alverno Neighbors. And tonight, I would like to present an update on the Alverno action items related to the neighbors discussed at the November 18th committee meeting. Outreach and communication. Alverno has done nothing to reach out to neighbors since the last meeting. Neighbors sent several emails to Alverno staff, board president, requesting a meeting, and they have then ignored them. Event schedules provided to neighbors were inaccurate. A resident inquired about pickup and drop-off times, but they were verbally told one thing and observed something else on that day. Alverno facilities have not been open to the public. Facility rental. It has come to our attention that a temporary use permit was approved in August of 2021, allowing increased rental of the villa and sound amplification. There was no community input or discussion regarding this approval. For the last 4 days, the lower school students were moved to Grandview parking lot for recess and lunch. I have provided a picture for you today. The coalition believes there was filming, but no notices were received. Alverno rented out the facility at least 3 times since the last meeting. Neighbors called Alverno and the Sierra Madre Police Department at least twice because event noise levels were over the legal limit. On November 20th, just 2 days after the committee meeting, a wedding was measured at over 95 decibels from the Highland exit. During that event, neighbors walked the perimeter looking for Alverno staff or a security guard and found nobody monitoring the event. On Saturday, November 27th, there was an event that was not on the calendar. After the event, partygoers moved the party to West Highland in front of my house for over an hour and brought the marijuana. There are weddings scheduled for December 4th and 11th, and neighbors would like the city and police support to prevent noise and TUP violations. Traffic, transportation, and parking. The commission suggested Alverno stagger start times, but this has been occurring since the lower school opened, and it has not improved the traffic. The Sierra Madre Police Department was called several times to direct traffic, but they did not send officers. To our knowledge, there is no paid Alverno staff directing traffic at entrance and exit gates and on our streets. Parents are still parking on streets daily and walking children in, attempting to avoid car line. For the last 4 days, the Highland Gate has been closed. Car line has gone from Mitchelinda all the way to Sierra Madre Boulevard. I have also included a picture from today. It has been brought to our attention that Mitchelinda residents who live in the city of Pasadena and not Sierra Madre are impacted by traffic of Alverno and have not been included in discussions. The coalition has reviewed the traffic, transportation, and parking programs of other comparable schools and found 2 schools, Blanchard Sacred Heart Academy in Pasadena and the Archer School in Brentwood, with equal enrollment and located in residential areas like ours. Both schools have comprehensive plans that include buses, transport vans, shuttles, carpool policies that require 2 and 3 students per car, paid parking permits, limited parking for student drivers, and assigned parking spaces. Parking and traffic attendants are stationed at all parking lots, traffic queues, and entrance and exit gates. Policy violations lead to detentions, fines, and suspension of driving privileges. Archer School employs a full-time transportation and parking coordinator. They do not allow queuing or parking on neighborhood streets and monitor all vehicle noise, including idling. They have a mobile application for people to make parking reservations. Archer has a neighborhood traffic plan that includes a pedestrian safety study, traffic calming plan, do not block intersection signs, and no right turn on red restrictions. Both schools, interestingly, have community outreach programs that ensure positive neighborhood relations. Archer employs a community relations representative that responds and resolves neighborhood concerns and complaints and they have consistent neighbor meetings. Unlike Alverno, both schools have up-to-date event schedules that are available online. Filming. After the last coalition meeting, coalition members canvassed the residents living 300 feet from the Alverno campus. Most were opposed to the amount of filming. Many said they do not sign filming request forms, and the coalition believes the required signatures have not been secured by film staff. Many residents stopped signing forms because they were inaccurate. Mitchelinda residents are not asked to sign consent forms when they live within 250 feet of the campus. It has come to our attention that neighbors have been paid upwards of $350 for their signature on approval forms. Green space. Green space. There has been no action to create a green barrier on Wilson or plant the box trees located on West Highland across the street from my house. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. What is it?
Good evening. My name is Kristen Stevens. Thank you, Kristen Stevens from 717 West Grandview. I appreciate the opportunity to bring something up. It's regarding the noise coming from Alverno. It seems to have suddenly gotten much louder. They have moved tables onto the parking lot and they're conducting, I don't know if there's classrooms, but there's lunches going on. We don't know why they've moved from where they used to be, but also there is the noise from the various PE, recess, sporting events. We can't even eat dinner with some guy yelling or whistles, clapping, cheering. And in the 2011 studies, Alverno's own noise consultant stood up here and said it is too impactful to put any kind of sporting activities in that area. So the field was not approved for the Mitchelinda parking lot. It was approved to be a parking lot and enlarged. I don't understand how this is happening because they don't really have the use of that, but they've created this sports court with no TUP for it and no input from the neighbors. We're constantly asking them, like, how can we, you have all this open space, why can't the kids move to the open space that you keep touting as being there? They have a field. We don't understand why they're not using the field. Why can't students eat under the Morton fig tree on the terrace of the villa they keep touting? It's perfectly fine to us, but it makes it very difficult for us to work or be in our home at, or even out on the outside, open up our home at all. We're now having to use air conditioning, which is not good for my asthma. And just, we've altered our lives so much in the last year and a half. The K through 8 is a totally different animal than having a high school of girls. The girls stayed in class. They had pep rallies. That was noisy, yes. But they weren't out 24/7, it seems like. There's always something going on in the parking lot. I don't understand it. My husband would be here. He was going to mention this and speak, but couldn't be here. The other issue is the wedding on Saturday. That was ridiculous, especially after being up here and saying what great neighbors Alverna was. It was phenomenal. The bass, the subwoofer, I don't know, my husband was going to speak on this, came through our house and just, I had treatment that day. I could not rest. So we walked around, figured, is this really Alverno? It doesn't seem like Alverno because it's super loud. Yeah, it was Alverno. We took a noise reading. It's included in your packets. I sent an email today. The neighbors who signed our petition last week are feeling really betrayed by Alverno. There is language in the new TUP that none of us have agreed to, have been discussed with, and it's not in keeping with the 2011 meetings we had and the negotiations. They just sweat blood to get the language down. It actually needs to be tightened up. Some of it's very vague, especially when it comes to the amplification. It's a judicious use. It's voracious by the DJs. The DJ is not even discussed in this TUP. So when you call, if you were to get somebody, they're like, oh, well, it's a DJ. It's not a live band. That's not the point. The point is they're using an amplification system outside at a level for a club. These are neighbors. You can hear it 4 blocks away. We want to see that stopped. There's a big wedding coming up on Saturday. And we called the police and we're told, oh, other neighbors have called the police. I said, well, we haven't seen anybody. We talked to the neighbors who had called, a couple of them. They said, well, they came to us and said they're having a good time. That's not an acceptable response for the neighbors. There is a moratorium on using amplification outside. They had the doors wide open on the north and south side so that both levels were getting blasted. It was a very high level. And it went on till 10. We didn't sign up to live next to a bar or a film studio, and we're really fed up with it. We'd like help from the Planning Commission to rein things in. That is why there's a TUP. That's why we understand there's a CUP. And we're happy to abide by it, but we're also a neighbor that needs our neighbors to be neighborly. We don't feel Alverno's been neighborly. They basically were thumbing their nose by not having somebody outside at the gate, even though we have written them or called them several times after the fact. And they'll say, we'll have someone there. They're supposed to have someone there anyway. It's in the TUP. There's supposed to be a security guard taking measurements around the perimeter, and if their reading is loud, it has to get turned down. We can't find these people, or their voicemail is full. There's always an excuse as to why we can't get a hold of them. So I have included what I can to help kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about, and I thank you for listening.
Can I ask you a question quick? Do you routinely get the filming crews or somebody to come to your house to get you to sign off
Yes
on
and
what
no.
yes? Is that hit or miss, or?
It is, because we called up and I caught a guy one day walking by our house, and I said, oh, hey, what are you collecting? And he said, the film. And I said, well, you missed my house. And he goes, I was told not to go to your house. I said, why? That's ridiculous. We want to at least know, even if we sign no. But we've had major issues with the film because we are directly across. Bank lighting shooting at our house. We can't get anyone to address that. Even the police are like, oh, they have a permit. But I thought there was a city ordinance that said you can't shoot lights in people's home.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we have had them come by. Other times not. I've been bullied by the film crews.
Oh,
When
okay.
I've made a complaint, they'll send someone over and
Really?
pull a toughie.
Really?
Anyway,
Oh, thank you.
They don't come to my house at all. In fact, the guy waits outside and tries to get other people who are coming into my home to get the signature.
I see. Okay.
I did not accept the $350.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Who does code enforcement in the off hours?
That would be the police department.
Do they have some way of knowing what the CUP committed us to or committed them to?
The management or administration does. So they do brief them. I know this has been heightened and brought to their attention, especially recently.
So they're aware?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. City Attorney, is the TUP that allows for filming is not something that the Planning Commission has purview over, correct?
The TUP doesn't regulate filming. We have a filming ordinance. It's a separate process.
Okay, so the Planning Commission doesn't have any purview over the filming? No. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Mhm.
Deb Sheridan, Valley Vista Drive. And I'm not talking about Alverno, but I am speaking to you tonight because you are contemplating canceling your December 16th and your January 6th meetings. At this time, I would like to commend you for your many questions to the consultants about the environmental impact report for the changes to the general plan and how you listen to us concerned residents. I have several questions, though, regarding the environmental impact report for the Monastery property. I have heard that the EIR is completed or nearly so. There were over 70 responses to the draft EIR by the residents. Many were in-depth regarding the issues involved. I hope that the responses to these letters that were sent in will be more insightful than the responses to those of the supplemental general plan EIR. The proposed project of 42 homes at the monastery is huge. I would like to know what the timeline will be for your discussion of the EIR as well as the city councils. By California law, there can be no more than 2 workshops for the Planning Commission and 2 for City Council. In other words, 4 in all. My question is, how will these workshops be handled? Will they be similar to what we had during the general plan update, or like what happened a year ago last summer on the tennis courts, something I believe that was called a workshop? Will we be limited to our 5 and 3 minutes respectively? As you have heard over and over, it's just not enough time. We are now living through an unprecedented drought. Today's LA Times had an article titled, "State Won't Provide Water to Districts." I am quoting the article and the general manager. We are working with our member agencies serving those communities to make sure residents and businesses understand the severity and complexity of the situation and are responding by reducing their water use as much as necessary. Will this affect the proposed development as it did several years ago? This drought is even more severe, as you all know. And I would like to suggest also holding an informal workshop or 2 for the residents to learn the facts before the EIR officially comes out to be commented on. I will reiterate to you what you have been hearing over and over. There is just not enough time. And thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Good evening. Name's Gary Hood, live at 465 North Baldwin. I'd like to first comment on the lady that spoke first about the traffic coming out of Alverno. I don't know if you guys all go to work and you're not around the Alverno when the school lets out about 3, but I was the other day, and it was difficult making a turn onto Baldwin and going clear down to Sierra Madre Boulevard. The traffic was unbelievable. I thought there was some kind of problem, and then I hear tonight. So I'm just reiterating what the lady said. That traffic is horrible on Mitchell Linda. It's an unsafe situation. As you all know, I'm friends with Debbie Sheraton, and I came here when I heard her talk, and I'm sorry, Deb, but there were some inaccuracies in what she said or how she's quoting things. One of the things she said, 42 homes. I think we could call those 42 track homes. That's what they really are. They're track homes. The other thing was we call it the Monastery. That's because it's been kind of called that over the years. But in 1991, when there was an earthquake, Chicago decided to tear the monastery down. There is no monastery anymore. It's a retreat center, and it should be called that. And I know we can't put up nice colored signs and give people cookies, but we can concentrate on the truth. And the truth is, it's not a monastery, it's a retreat center. The other thing she was talking about was the drought. And driving home today on the radio, and I forget who it was, they said that we have a serious drought situation here. And the only way we're going to be able to overcome that is if everybody uses zero water. Well, that got my attention. And then I started thinking about the net zero water that the MOU is talking about. But they said that on the news. We're going to have to go to zero water. That's a scary thought. So I think we really need to consider this drought situation into any new plans that we're developing for the city. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else for an item not on the agenda? Come forward.
Vic Aguilar, 87 Auburn. I just want to speak to the larger construct of the idea of net zero water based on a premise of future promises of water. And these premises are really not in any way grounded in the reality that we all face. Particularly the further forward we look. You know, we're currently in a situation not of drought. I think that's inappropriate language. We're going through wholesale really a phase change of climate. And there's most of the forces are creating great stress on systems that are providing our fresh water in particular. The solutions are medium to long term, and yet the promises for this housing development are short to long term, and I think that there's a big problem in the middle term. Really, it's completely unrealistic. Science is completely the hydrology, climatology. If you really take a deep dive into what's happening in the West, you look at all the projections, and unfortunately I don't have all the graphs and other supporting data to show you, so we don't have a way of doing that right now. But I'm telling you, what we're doing for climate is kind of a fractal also for what's happening with water. We're not responding quickly enough. And the idea that we're going to get through, it's not about getting through. It's about adapting to a completely different reality. So we have to do it within our community. Truly net zero, which at one point we used to have through our well-supplied, you know, the particular blessing that we had from our own aquifers. And I think that that's something that potentially we could achieve as a community, but we really have to be realistic when we're making the decisions about these promises of short to medium term water. This net zero MOU is no, it's a joke, really. But there's a great deal riding on it, so it's not that funny. I appreciate you guys taking time to hear us.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else? Okay, then I'll assume everybody else is here for the item on the agenda, which we can move to. Actually, we need to discuss, I guess, the consideration for the cancellation of the 2 upcoming meetings, so I guess we'll look at that first. Just, what's the situation?
So we currently do not have any items for those agenda dates. And also, I wouldn't have staff here to do public noticing due to the holidays, especially for the January 6th meeting, where city is closed during the holiday period.
Oh, okay.
So we typically do cancel one or both meetings depending upon timing and if we have any projects on schedule.
Okay. Well, Tom, were you gonna say something? Anybody wanna make any comments about it or discussion? Sounds like some of it's sort of a fait accompli, just even if we wanted to do an educational meeting or something, we'd still have trouble with noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, all right.
Do you need a motion?
Chair, we'll need a public comment on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Then we will open this up for public comment. Anyone want to come and speak on this item? Okay, well, heard some alternatives, just one opinion about getting some other educational meetings, but I guess that's it. Then I can close that part of the meeting and we'll just discuss it amongst ourselves. Anybody have any burning comments for or against, or any alternatives of what we could do if we planned the meeting?
You know, I think staff has been very productive this year, and we've all carried home very large documents and read, and so having a little time off was not, I'm not adverse to that. And we can come back in next year and pick up where we left off.
Okay. Tom, anybody want to?
Yeah, I agree. I guess similar to how we came up with a list of things we wanted to work on this year, we probably want to put one of those together if we can review it the first time we get together in January and prioritize it internally so that staff can recommend to city council or share our feedback.
Okay, that sounds good.
I know that one of those things has to be changing the zoning codes to comply with the housing element.
Yeah.
Couldn't hurt.
That particular item's coming back on January 20th.
Okay, good.
There you go.
Okay.
If I may, there is, the city council is also considering a strategy session. I don't remember exactly when it is, so we'll want to try to coordinate on that and make sure we communicate back and forth on what the city's considering. So if you could help us make sure that we figure out the right way to communicate that would be good. And probably having it come from you guys on what you'd like to work on in advance of the strategy session, I think would probably be good.
Great. Okay. Everybody sort of in favor of that? And I'm going to make a motion then, or?
It sounds, I mean,
Okay.
it sounds like we can't do the January 6th meeting even if we wanted to. So the only question is whether there's anything that we could do on the 16th, and if there's no projects or staff isn't ready to present, then I don't see that we have a meeting. I do think that, you know, when we get an opportunity and staff can't prepare, I do think we need to come up to speed on how filming and the TUP process works. Even if it's not something that we're directly in purview of, we need to understand that so we can tease those issues out from the CUPs that we do review. And I think just from a general education standpoint, that would be helpful for us. And I think probably for the whole city, because it seems like a lot of these things sort of seem to just happen in a black box, and it would be good for everyone to understand what the process is and what the are and the conditions and what people, how people can say, hey, this isn't working how it's supposed to, and, you know, all of that package.
Sure, yeah. And maybe even just provide some attention so that the school will reach out to the public and do some of the stuff that they feel they have not done so far. Okay, great. All right, I guess we need a motion then.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll move that we cancel the meetings of December 16th and January 6th.
Second.
okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. We'll move on then to our public hearing, second action item of the disclosure, design review permit 2109 for, what's the address? 505 North Hermosa Avenue. I think we've been there before.
We do have a PowerPoint presentation by Josh Wolf, and he's queuing up that PowerPoint for you right now.
Great. All right.
But I guess we can
see.
go back to that if we need to.
Go ahead, Josh.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, the Commission will be reviewing the design review permit, administrative design review permit, and discretionary demolition permit for the project located and proposed at 505 North Hermosa Avenue. Let me give that a moment to kind of warm up and see everything here, actually. We had this all set up yesterday for full screen, but it doesn't seem to be doing that right now. So the project is located at 505 North Hermosa. This is at the corner of North Hermosa and West Carter. It is a designated land use as residential low density with a one-family residential zone, a lot size of 13,700. And of note is it is a reversed corner lot in that the front yards share front yards with adjacent properties, and it is also the location of the Wisteria Vine. The applicant, Vicky Mack, is requesting to expand the single-family residence by addition, a single-floor addition, to a gross floor area which is greater than 3,500 square feet. The total gross floor area of the property would be 4,303 square feet. This would require approval of a design review permit. Also requested is to exempt the partial basement area of the carport and the storage area attached to it from the gross floor area calculation, of which requires approval of administrative design review permit. Third would be to alter and modify the property and structure, which are eligible for listing as a local historic landmark, for which would require a discretionary demolition permit. And just for clarification for the community, demolition in this context is kind of more an umbrella term, which can include alteration and modifications, not necessarily full demolition. The applicant will also be remodeling the interior floor plan, making slight alterations to the floor plan program in coordination with the proposed additions. The project does qualify for categorical exemption Class 3 under California Environmental Quality Act. Here are some photographs of the property. On the top left of the slide is the front of the property as viewed from Hermosa Avenue. On the top right is the front of the property as viewed from the corner intersection of Carter and Hermosa. Towards the bottom are views of the rear. Starting with the bottom left, we have the southwest corner facing the rear. Then in the middle, the patio looking out towards the rear, and then to the right is the patio looking in at the rear. So here we have the project summary. I'll go kind of line by line with kind of highlights here. The building height is increasing, but that does not mean that the roof line is increasing. This means that the grade below is actually decreasing, which results in a greater height. The gross floor area here, I have a total of 4,303 square feet. This would include the area of the partial basement. Less that would be 3,645 square feet. And it is code compliant in that total allowed would be 3,828 square feet. So it's only compliant if it is found that the partial basement qualifies, if the carport and the attached storage area qualifies as partial basement. Second of note is the front yard setback from Hermosa Avenue. It is a currently existing, legally constructed, non-conforming 20-foot yard setback, but code requirements are not applicable in that it falls within protections under our non-conforming ordinance. And finally of note for parking, the total habitable floor area space is less than 3,500, for which 2 parking spaces would be required, for which there are existing within the carport. So here we can see I've shown what the total habitable square foot would be. This is in the dark green line here. It's 3,325 square feet. The reason that you see a difference between 3,325 and the 3,600 square feet is because there are areas under the eaves that are wider than 4 feet, for which we are counting into the gross floor area calculation. Now you can see from the neighborhood analysis, it concludes that among the total 35 properties within the 300-foot radius of the subject property, that the proposed project would fall within the top 1/3 of properties, ranking at number 7 by building size. So here's a site plan. The property gains access from Hermosa Avenue. Here you can see from the right-hand side of the slide on a driveway which is approximately 18 feet wide. Green area shaded here represents the area of the canopy covered by the Wisteria Vine. And I've also highlighted here the areas of the trunks of the Wisteria Vine. There are 5 trunks located on the property currently. Here in the proposed site plan, we can see where the areas of the addition would occur in the blue highlighted area, areas of addition at the rear end extending towards the west, along with additions of roof line over the patio. And from here, you can actually see we've counted this diagonal shaded area with diagonal hatching as areas within gross floor area calculation. This is within the front porch area under eaves, not within enclosed floor area, eaves that are wider than 4 feet, along with eaves over the patio, which are wider than 4 feet. That total area is approximately 350 square feet. So here are the demolition and proposed floor plans. On the left, I've shown areas to be demolished and removed in red. This is mostly interior, but from exterior, we can see that there is removal of a deck at the rear end on the west facade. I've highlighted in yellow where there would be removal and replacement with replacement material. So this would be the guard railing on the raised deck extending the south end, as well as this wall here between the 2 bedrooms. On the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see the proposed floor plan shaded in blue. The proposed floor plan would add a bedroom here as a master bedroom suite, extending on the south end towards the west. It would also include a raised deck with stairs leading to grade. On the north end of that addition would be the extension for the kitchen, which is a relocation from its original at the northeast corner of the property, where there will be renovated for an office and laundry room. Between the 2 additions would be the extension of the patio space. It will be partially covered up to the points of posts and extended deck area leading out to grade. Here we have the lower floor plan, which is the carport, attached storage area, and crawl space below the addition. Now this existing carport and storage area is measured to be 1 foot, an average of 1 foot 8 inches around the perimeter a distance between the space's ceiling and the adjacent grade. And at no point around the perimeter of the space is there any distance greater than 8 feet, vertical distance that would be. On the right-hand side, I've highlighted the roof plan's addition. This would extend the roof plan following eaves of similar widths to match in kind to the existing structure. Here we have the east elevation on top and the south elevation on the bottom. These are the fronts of the property, east elevation being the primary at Hermosa, south elevation being the secondary on Carter. The east elevation provided is effectively a cross-sectional cutting through the front yard as close as possible to the building for purposes of clearly showing the full building. Not depicted is slightly sloped concrete walk extending from the curb to the front gate and concrete stair leading from the driveway to the concrete walk, both with a guardrail. The south elevation employs the same method to show as much building as possible. Not depicted is the river rock retaining wall at curb, bisected by a concrete stair leading to the gate fixed on a garden wall that spans the southern side of the property. The garden wall would obscure portions of the building that are below finished floor level. So, as viewed from this south elevation, everything below the raised deck would not be visible from street level on Carter. Moving on to the next slide, we have the west elevation on the top of the slide and the north elevation on the bottom. The west elevation being the rear, which faces west, obviously, and the north elevation being the side closest on the north. From the west elevation, and to clearly show all of the building, vegetation, including the Wisteria Vine and its trunks and supported posts are not depicted on these elevations. The west elevation realizes the greatest level of change, where the facade would be completely altered. The northern side of the facade will have the open patio enclosed, removing the existing family room's window wall and adjacent exterior breeze block wall. This enclosure would accommodate the proposed floor plan's relocated kitchen area and would also require partial removal of the Wisteria Vine's canopy. The northern addition will also feature the floor-to-ceiling window on the northern facade.
Josh, the proposed kitchen addition in the top, in the west elevation, is there a window missing from the center?
Well, the floor-to-ceiling window I measured is on this northern elevation here.
No, but so that's a floor-to-ceiling window on the kitchen wall, the west wall?
So if you're pointing at the west elevation, there's only clear story windows here.
On upper windows, but nothing on the wall.
No, this is an extension pop out from the existing. The floor-to-ceiling window I mentioned is here on its northern face.
Okay.
So the kitchen just has clear story?
Is what?
Just has the clear story windows,
Yeah.
the kitchen.
Yeah. Interesting.
So the southern side of the west facade realizes a small solid wall enclosure by replacing the existing 6-pane window wall with a 4-pane window wall with transom windows in slightly altered proportion. A fixed floor-to-ceiling window is also present on the side of the addition. Hyphenation from the original is expressed through the window walls in altered proportion, clad vertical siding, and the lack of exposed wood beams under eaves. The southern side addition opens to a raised deck with stairs to grade and wrapped with a metal guardrail to match the guardrail replacement on the southern facade. Between the northern and southern additions, work is proposed to extend the deck and roof above, creating an alcove space partially covered by the wide eaves of the roof. The wide spanning window wall at the center of the western facade will be retained, and that's why you don't see it highlighted here. So proposed materials would be this gray faux cement brick panel at the entrance. This would be close to the front door. It would only remove and replace the existing brick material there for this gray one. You also have Monterey taupe, James Hardy panel vertical siding for the exterior walls of the bedroom addition, dark gray paint for the existing wood exposed beams, and window and door trim. and railing. An off-white paint for stucco walls. This would be for the addition of the kitchen. A bright yellow accent color for the front door, and a natural white oak for panels cladding the retaining wall at the driveway. So here we have a concept planting and landscape. This being conceptual, these are all staff selected photos, but they are pulled from a list of plants that the applicant has chosen, that being a dragon tree, Mexican blue palm, thornless palo verde, agave, red and yellow kangaroo paw, Myers asparagus fern, Australian tree fern, Long John grevillea, Mexican weeping bamboo, and blue stick ground cover. And onto the Wisteria vine. The Wisteria vine, named after botanist Caspar Wistar, the Chinese wisteria plant seen here on the property was originally planted in 1894 near the front porch of the original house. Having been well maintained, the hardy plant overgrew and caused significant damage to the original house, which was eventually demolished. The vine has 5 trunks, and because of the history of construction and demolition on the property, it has been difficult to document the location of the original planting. In 1994, the vine was recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest blossoming plant. And in 1995, a plaque was erected to commemorate this recognition. The property is not currently listed in the city's Registry of Historic Landmarks, nor is Chinese wisteria a species that has protections under city ordinance. So from this site plan, I've identified the 5 trunks. And trunk number 4, viewed here, that is on the current patio, actually slightly below patio, would be removed for the proposed addition and expansion of the home. An Arborist Report was prepared on September 24th, 2021, following the city's press release regarding the pruning of the vine. The report details observations of the recent pruning that took place and the current and long-term health of the vine with consideration of the proposed addition. The report concludes that the vine remains in good health after pruning, that the vine will remain in good health with the removal of trunk number 4 to accommodate the addition, and provides recommendations for long-term care and maintenance. Conditions of approval have been included that require the applicant to follow the recommendations of the arborist. And lastly, we have 3D renderings here of the project. This is front viewed from Hermosa. Now again, there's not much change. There's the door with the color shown. A slight change to the facade here with their faux gray brick. Following that, we have the addition for the bedroom leading out to the rear yard. And following that, we have that from a different angle at poolside. And while rendering of the kitchen could be shown, it's mostly covered by wisteria vine. Moving on to design review permit findings. First, it is found that the proposed project maintains single-family zoning and land use by meeting all development standards and applicable general plan goals and objectives for single-family residential land use. And staff also find that the lower level meets the definition of a partial basement pursuant to Sierra Madre Municipal Code 17.20.015, where the average vertical measure between lower level ceiling and the adjacent lowest grade is 1 foot 8 inches. And at no point does the vertical measure exceed 8 feet. Second, that the Arborist Report concludes that the proposed project will have no significant impact on the wisteria vine, and the siting of the project will promote and improve the enjoyment of privacy and use of single-family residents, both for the subject and for neighboring properties. The proposed project maintains neighborhood compatibility through consistent roofline extensions, siding similar to the existing, modest floor area, and architectural style compatible with the existing form and patterns of the neighborhood. The high-style example of mid-century modern architecture is preserved, where the project proposes additions at the rear that are compatible with the style. The proposed project maintains low-profile design characteristic of the foothill village setting. The proposed project remains single-story, tucked into the hillside. Additions create additional private open space and promote the enjoyment of privacy, both for itself and for neighboring properties. coherent project-wide design is demonstrated through forms and massing in kind to the mid-century modern architecture, respecting the original through hyphenated additions which visually differentiate the existing exposed beams under eaves and orientation of transom windows. The proposed project is a custom design intended to complement the existing mid-century modern style with wide eaves, flat roof, massing to create alcove space, and floor-to-ceiling windows. The property is eligible for listing as a local historic landmark for exemplary mid-century modern architecture. Preservation of the original structure is demonstrated through features differentiated through careful hyphenation of its addition. The health of the Wisteria Vine is not impacted by the proposed addition and may be preserved through long-term care. Grading will be minimal and there are no protected species trees on site. The siding of the addition are kept in with the landforms where there is existing building pad at the north end, relatively low sloped land at the south end. Open space is preserved where the proposed project would only occupy 27.6% of the land while promoting privacy through private open space in alcove areas. High quality materials intended to specifically characterize mid-century modern architectural style are used on additions while being compatible with differentiations from eligible historic resources, which also are required to meet high efficiency energy requirements per California Green Code. Findings for demolition permit are as follows. First, found that historic evaluation and historic design review reports conclude that the property is eligible for listing as a local historic landmark. The proposed project conforms to the mitigations to preserve the property's historic value through hyphenation of the addition to the original structure and through preservation of the Wisteria Vine through long-term care and maintenance plan. A waste management plan, which could either be Athens or another approved hauler, to be approved by the Public Works Department, will be prepared to comply with all requirements for demolition. The demolition of exterior walls is necessary to accommodate the expansion of the home's interior floor space. The demolition will not incur change of use on the property. The project maintains use as a single-family residence, conforming with development standards of the municipal code and goals and objectives of the general plan. Finally, the demolition activity will meet requirements of the California Building Code and city's fire and zoning code. Tonight, the alternatives before the commission, they may approve the request for design review permit 2109, administrative design review permit 2103, and discretionary demolition permit 2106, pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 21-20. They may approve these applications with modifications. They may deny the request, identifying the findings that the Planning Commission cannot make and the basis for rejecting those findings, or they may continue the subject project and provide direction to the applicant and to staff. Staff is recommending approval of these applications pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 21-20, and I'm almost out of breath. Thank you. Before I conclude this presentation, I'll accept any questions of the commission, but I do believe that our applicant has a presentation also.
Okay. Go ahead. Want some questions of Josh, or should we just?
Point of clarification, Josh. The Wisteria Vine is not protected by any local or state ordinance?
It is not protected by local. I'm not clear about state ordinances.
But there is nothing to protect the vine in terms of modification or change or how it's addressed by, trimming or anything like that?
Not in local ordinances.
So if I had the vine on my property and I wanted to cut it back, would I need any permissions from the city?
That would be, yeah, you would not need permission from the city. It's not considered a legacy tree by our protected tree ordinance, and it's not currently identified in the Registry of Historic Landmarks.
And for Vincent, we recently, this applicant trimmed the vine because the pictures that we see here do not reflect its current condition. And when that happened, I know a member of city staff was called up on the weekend to, observe what was going on. I happened to drive by and there were a number of people in the street who were agitated. And since that, are you aware of the city council or anyone directing staff to draft any ordinance to protect the Wisteria Vine?
No, not directly from city council or planning commission directly as a body. Certainly that, could be an opportunity to do something like that, but I think it would need to, the city council would have to amend the legacy tree ordinance to include just legacy species possibly. That would take some time and probably would impede the applicant. I don't think the planning commission would be able to.
I'm just saying that, I'm just trying to find out, is there something in the works
There is
that
no,
we're not aware of to protect the vine?
there is nothing in the works at this point.
Okay.
Staff has had that discussion, but it would come after your decision here tonight.
The planning commission doesn't have the authority to say that the Wisteria vine is a protected species, does it? We're
It
not,
does not. That would be the.
we're not, that's outside of our purview.
Yes, that's a
So
separate commission.
that would have to come from city council.
Also, Ener
Okay.
Commission.
Okay.
I do have some questions as well. So, did the applicant apply for historical status?
No.
Okay. And we have to receive an application for historical status for that change to be conveyed.
To make a motion to, classify it as a historic landmark, they would need to send in an application for historic landmark designation.
Okay. I have some other code-based questions, so I don't know if this will be you, the city attorney, or the director, but what's the definition of covered parking?
Covered parking would have to be covered on 3 sides typically.
So unlike habitable space, there's no minimum height required on covered parking?
The covered parking height requirement in the R1 zone, if it's more than 7.5 feet, then we could count it as habitable floor area. And if Josh could clarify what is the clear space between the ceiling height and the garage finished floor elevation, if you have that information.
Well, I can tell you at the entrance on the north side, it is this tall, and I'm 5'10", so it's 5'7" at best, and it might be 6 feet on the southern side of that entrance. That's why I'm asking these questions, because if anybody else has this house or anybody has a regular sized car, they won't be able to park there. And so I'm trying to understand what the definition is for parking, for covered parking, to see if those 2 spots even qualify for covered parking.
So my understanding, and our parking ordinance was recently updated, but I believe it still retains the language that the minimum required vertical clearance for covered parking is 7 feet.
So this
now-
doesn't qualify then?
Well, I believe it's existing non-conforming. Now, it's not a new proposed building or structure, so it's existing as it is. And that's where that stands.
And what does that mean as far as our ability to make decisions? If it's existing non-conforming, are you saying that we can't preclude or add any recommendations because it's existing non-conforming?
Our city's non-conforming ordinance would, correct me if I'm wrong, it would say that if proposed work is done where there's existing non-conforming portions of the building, that as long as the proposed work complies with development standards, that the existing non-conforming conditions can exist unaltered.
So then, the house one to the north of there received a conditional use permit so that they didn't have to have the 2 parking spots, but they were existing non-conforming. So help me understand why we had to grant a CUP
Minor.
literally to the house one north.
Minor CUP, but still, right.
I'm just trying to understand, because
No, I'm just saying, it was a minor CUP,
a
not
minor CUP, sorry,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
minor
for the-
CUP for parking. My point more being that when we look at the holistic, I think that the public safety people here at the dais swallowed some concern to even grant one minor CUP on that street, and it was a little further up where the street actually does have a widening.
Right.
That is not the case on the end there, and there will never be 2 people parked in that spot. So I'm just trying to understand, from a public safety perspective, how we help get this conforming.
But your question was specifically before that, why the minor conditional use permit was approved for the prior project?
Whereas
Because-
we don't need to do one on this.
Need one here.
And I don't recall exactly the prior project, but was the issue there that there was a non-conforming use and there was an expansion of non-conforming use?
There was expansion of non-conforming use, but that did not impact the existing single parking garage that was there, which was substandard. So they were allowed to retain the substandard condition of that one parking spot.
Right.
So if I'm understanding the director correctly, it's the same thing happened there that's happening here. An existing non-conforming aspect of the home is present, and because that existing non-conforming aspect of the home isn't being changed in any way, that's remaining, whereas the rest of the home is being improved. And the rest of the home, for its improvement, needs to get a permit.
But if it's, I guess the point is, if it's the same thing as the other one, why aren't we processing a minor CUP?
And again, was a minor CUP processed for purposes?
Because they didn't provide 2 parking spaces, they had a 1-car parking space. That was
In the other one.
in the
Yeah.
other one. This one,
Only got
it
one
does
spot.
provide 2 parking spots. We've seen 2 vehicles in that carport, challenging as it may be.
The other thing with regard to covered is, I don't think our code requires covered parking any longer.
That is technically correct.
That would be
Because-
because of the.
The covered parking used to be in the parking code, and we changed the parking code to just be the numbers, and we put the covered portions into R1, but then when the R1's amendments were processed, people above our pay grade decided it wasn't a good idea to put the covered part back in. So there's no covered parking requirement in R1 right now. You
Okay.
just need to have parking.
We hope to reinstate that at the next code updates.
That's something we should put on our list.
Another one for the list, but I guess following that logic, I guess regardless of we would have to define what a parking spot is, because if we're saying that a 3-foot-high space is parking,
Yeah, it's pretty hard to park if you
Outfoxed
can't put a
ourselves.
car in, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, is that while the current owners may have cars that fit there, as we've seen, owners change over time,
And cars change.
and cars change over time. And so,
An SUV would not fit in there.
no, there are electric vehicles that would not fit in there. Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is that that's nothing we can fix at this time. Okay. With regards to fencing around pools, what is the code requirement for that? Because there were none. There was just the exterior fence, and so I didn't know if there's a requirement to have certain kinds of doors, if they open to a pool area that doesn't have a fence around it or any of that. I just wanted to make sure that we were hitting on that.
So for new pools, there would be a requirement for fencing or solid fencing around the pool perimeter, especially if it were to face the street, minimum 5-foot height. And I think there's a building code involved in that if the gates are opening to the pool, that they need to be automatically closing.
And what about when they're doing construction on a lot that has an existing pool?
I'm not familiar with conformancy with existing standards that are non-conforming to any codes with regard to the building code.
Would that be addressed by the building inspector in the process of approving any construction?
If the scope of work does not involve the pool, I don't believe it will be within the scope of the inspector to make any notes on for corrections.
See, I assumed that, I just assumed that when, in the building process, everything will be brought, quote, up to code, and an inspector would say, by the way, you need to put a fence around this pool. And that's, because I looked at that too, and I said, oh, they'll catch that when they do the construction.
We can confirm that with our building official.
I thought if the property was fenced and the pool was within the property, it's considered fenced, is my understanding.
That's the way it is interpreted, and one of the requirements would be that you would have to have self-closing gates.
Yeah,
And self-closing doors.
I didn't know whether it was one or the other, but I figured a building inspector would catch it. And either way, because.
Yeah, because I think if there is no pool fence, then it's a
Right.
self-closing door, I believe, that is required.
On the house?
On the property. The idea is
So on the
that
perimeter wall?
in other words, there has to be a encasement around that pool, and so people just can't wander in and fall in the pool.
Right, but it's just for non-residents that we're protecting. So you could have a door on the.
Correct.
the
Somebody can
extension.
walk in from the house out to the pool.
Okay.
That, in some cases is permitted, but I don't know about.
Yeah, I don't know where the code is on that. But that's just something that I was curious about. And I just wanted clarification on you had mentioned that due to the size of the front patio and the rear patio, that's 350 square feet that we included in the gross square footage area.
That is correct. The sum of the front porch plus rear patio, which is covered by eave greater than 4 feet, is about 350 square feet.
And so what is it, am I reading your project summary correct, that the square footage without that 350 square feet would be 3,645 square feet? Is that what that number was?
So less the front porch and rear patio, it is 3325 if I recall correctly.
3325, which is below the 3791 allowed.
38.
Or sorry, 38.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 3828. Thank you. Those were my questions.
No other questions for Josh? Okay. The applicant has a presentation they would like to make?
The applicant is with us by telephone.
Oh, okay. Who's representing the applicant? Hello?
Ms. Mack, are you still online?
Hello?
I think I heard it.
Jen, can you ask?
Hello?
Are you there, applicant?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Did-
Hi. Hi, sorry. I was on mute. Hi, good evening, commissioners. My name is Vicky Mack. I'm the owner of the house, and thank you for the opportunity tonight for this meeting, answering any questions about this project. A little bit background of my family. My family and I have been looking to relocate back to LA for a while to join my sister, and we've been searching for the right home for a couple of years. I grew up near Pasadena. I know the surrounding cities very well, so it's only natural for me to look at cities nearby that I'm familiar with. So I've been to Sierra Madre before, and while I was living in LA, and it is one of my favorite cities. So when this house became for sale, we drove down from the Bay Area and on the same day and visited. We walked into the mid-century design house with a remarkable wisteria plant in the backyard. We know this is it. We don't need to look any further. And so we put in our offer immediately. We have 2 kids, one in high school and one in elementary, and 2 rescue dogs. The kids paid a visit to the property over the summer and very excited and be able to move into this gorgeous house. Of course, the selling point for these guys are not the mid-century design or the plan, but it was the pool. Of course, that did the trick for them. With that said, since there will be 4 people occupying in this house, that is the reason why we need to add a master suite and a home office in order to accommodate my family needs. So, thank you. Have any questions for me?
Yeah, anybody have any questions for the applicant, or want to ask her, expand on what they asked Josh, no?
You want?
Go ahead, John.
I was just wondering, when you were in the process of buying the house, was it disclosed to you that the Wisteria Vine was the world's largest blossoming plant?
Was it disclosed to me? I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Wisteria Vine is, that there's an annual festival and it's part of the town lore.
Yes, it was.
And did you agree to continue to open the house every year for the Wisteria Festival?
At that time, because it was the vine itself was really overgrown, and so I did not agree yet, but I did talk to Chamber that we would love to participate as soon as, you know, the construction and everything else is done. Because at that time, it was the vine itself was overgrown really crazy. And so we wanted to make sure that it doesn't, you know, have any, you know, risk or anything that is, you know, opposed to the community or even my house, because part of the vine was overgrowing on the roof and it was crushing the deck. So safety was my priority. And so, yeah, so I definitely know that there is the Vine Festival every year.
I just have an odd question that occurred to me while I was walking through. You're moving and this it's sort of outside of our purview, so it's just a curiosity. You're moving the kitchen from one side of the house to the other and adding the offices where the kitchen was. Why didn't you choose to add the offices where you are going to, on that west wall instead?
I think the view, honestly, I think flipping the kitchen to the other side, I think the view itself is great, and it gives me more space and more quiet if the home office is where the kitchen is right now.
Oh,
so that's why we want to do that.
Because that's next to the street, and then I noticed that there was no window where you're putting the kitchen, so it was kind of confusing to me. Normally people like to look out the window, and so I was just, okay.
There are two patio doors on the side, so that's what, yeah, we don't need that many windows.
Okay. One more question. How did you find the arborist that advised you on the condition of the vine?
How did I find the arborist? It was referred from our landscaping designer. And so, yeah, she's actually here in person right now. Her name is Allison at Lancaster. She's a certified arborist and tons of experience in the arboriculture. So she's been helping me to look at the vine's health and provide guidance, you know, as far as how to maintaining it. So if you have a direct question regarding the vines, Allison is here to answer.
Was she there earlier this year when you pruned the vine?
She was when I was pruning the vine. No, she was not there. Well, it was just pruning the vines. We pruned it based on the recommendation from the landscape designer.
Okay.
And it was crushing the house, so there's no way that we just need to, because it's crushing the house. That is for the safety concern and fire hazard.
Question? Okay. Yeah, I guess that's, no other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. If there's no other, nobody else that's going to speak on this, then I guess I'll open up to the public comment. Anybody in the audience can come up and speak on this. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Gary Hood, 465 North Baldwin. And of all the years I've been coming to the city council meetings and the planning commission, I have never heard anything so absurd as to say that they're going to cut down one of the trunks on the Wisteria Vine one of the treasures of Sierra Madre, second largest in the world. When these people bought this place, they must have recognized that. Is there anything that the Planning Commission can do to help them build in the back or in another place so that that plant is not threatened? And if you get an expert on any one subject, somebody else can come in with another expert that'll totally say something different. So we need more than one expert to look at how we're going to save, or how the people that purchase that property are going to save that vine. Because we all know, just because they called it trunk number 4, that doesn't mean it was the 4th one that took sprout. It could have been the first one. Who knows? I don't know. But the thing is, this is just totally absurd. And if the city and the Planning Commission can do something to make sure that when they lay the concrete down, that they don't poison the roots, that there's so many things that I hope the Planning Commission can do to help the new owners of that property be happy with the house that they purchased by building it in a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb Sheridan, and I have 2 comments. Number 1 is the fact that they are applying for discretionary demolition permit, which I find very disturbing in itself. And also, I'm wondering, because, yes, I would say everybody in Sierra Madre is rather appalled that something might happen to our vine. And I would suggest that if you actually approve their project, that maybe you could put something in the approval that once they are finished with their construction, that they will open it up again. It's not unreasonable for them to not want people on their property if they have construction going on. But I, for one, don't understand why they bought the house in the first place, and I think an awful lot of people feel the way I do. But thank you once again.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Yeah,
Go ahead.
You're good? Okay.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Holm. I live at 305 Ramona Avenue. I'm a senior data scientist and an archaeologist, and I'm a child of Sierra Madre. I've lived in Sierra Madre for 27 years. I grew up here, I went to school here, I sold Girl Scout cookies outside of Howie's, I have my initials carved in the sidewalk at Highland and Mountain Trail, my softball team has their name on a plaque at Heasley. I live here and I'm from here. And most importantly, I vote here. I have voted in every single local city election since I turned 18. And more importantly, I am a homeowner. I just bought my first house in Sierra Madre. I moved in a few days before Halloween, and boy was it expensive, and boy am I glad that I get to live here. My house is also in the limbo of Sierra Madre city protections. Built in 1884, it is one of the oldest houses in Sierra Madre, but it is not protected. I bring this up because it was made abundantly clear to me when I purchased the house what its designation status was. It was made clear by the realtor, the homeowner, and the neighbors, and the city. To address the point about applying for city landmark designation status, I was told in May of this year that the city would not be accepting any new applications for historic status, and there is no plan to grant any future homes with historic designation status. So, I think that it's important that you listen to me because I am a new generation of Sierra Madre homeowners. I am invested in this town, I am passionate, I am proud, and I vote. So when I speak about Sierra Madre, it's from a highly informed place. I chose to invest in this community because of its heritage, its thoughtful and kind neighbors, its community spirit, and its drive and tenacity to defy the small town prescription. We do not take the easy way out here. We are proud and we are strong, and the symbol of this strength, it's the Wisteria Vine. No, it is not just a plant. It is a symbol of our community. It holds pride of place in the city seal. It lends its name to our city's nom de plume, the Wisteria City. It beckons and reminds us of our past, our heritage, and our home in the foothills. In a way no other landmark in Sierra Madre does. The Wisteria Vine is not just a plant. It's not just a plant because I don't need to tell you what I'm talking about when I say the Wisteria Vine. Every single citizen in Sierra Madre knows exactly which plant I'm talking about. It is the Wisteria Vine. It is not a Wisteria Vine. And it has been called the Wisteria Vine since at least 1918, over 103 years ago. This is not a recent fascination or a sudden mincing of words. This is what it's called and what it's always been called and why we refer to it as such. This plant has earned the right to be called the Wisteria Vine. I challenge you, Google the words Wisteria Vine. Can you tell me what the first result is? It's for Sierra Madre. The Wisteria Vine is intrinsically linked to our city, not just by our citizens, but by the global public. Between 1906 and 1999, the Sierra Madre Vista News published over 4,000 newspapers. These newspapers represent the growth of our city, our cultural zeitgeist, the rhythm and thrum of our neighborhood. And within those words are the stories and values that our town holds dear. So now I'm going to give you some facts about those newspapers. In those 4,700 newspapers, the Wisteria Vine is mentioned over 3,731 times. To give you some context, here are some other landmarks and how many times they've been mentioned. Lizzie's, 104. The Sierra Madre Playhouse, 1,647. The Pegler House, 868. Memorial Park, 1,883. Less than half of the number of times the Wisteria Vine has been mentioned. In fact, the Wisteria Vine was mentioned 286 more times than the Sierra Madre City Council. And it appears nearly as frequently as Kirstein Court, the minute difference of only 135 mentions. That's less than 8%. I argue that the Wisteria Vine is and has always been at the very root of our community. I argue that the significance of the Wisteria Vine transcends the transient whims of a single uninterested homeowner who could not be here tonight. In April 2021, there were over 20, when this house sold, there were over 20 homes for sale in Sierra Madre at the same time as the Wisteria house was for sale. The MLS listed the Wisteria Vine and the house sold for listed the Wisteria Vine in the listing, and the house sold for significantly more than the other 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom comps. Importantly, this wasn't even the only mid-century modern home on the market at the time. 700 Edgeview was also for sale in March and also sold in April. It was also a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. These homeowners absolutely knew what they were buying. These homeowners absolutely knew what they were buying, where they were buying, and in fact, they paid a premium for it. And most importantly, the expectations that came with the house. It's also important to note that these people are not from Sierra Madre or our San Gabriel community. The homeowners could sell their home tomorrow and make roughly $400,000 in profit just from this little venture. Assuming that is that the house hasn't decreased in value due to the pruning. I do wonder why, though, with all of these renovations that are being conducted, why the homeowners chose to buy this house in the first place, because it seems they don't have as much value for the land or as much value for the house. There's not room to convert anything from the existing 2,100 square feet 2-bedroom space. I don't know. Let's talk a little bit more about home values for a second. For those of you who are concerned about your home values, you should be. Altadena is currently investing a ton of money in city heritage and preservation program, with the abject goal of modeling themselves as a second Sierra Madre. I encourage you to view their website and mission statement. In the last year, Altadena has experienced a massive housing boom, in particular centered around revitalization areas. Monrovia is currently doing the same. While Altadena is building their historic areas, creating historic housing districts, and building a downtown community, we in Sierra Madre are contemplating destroying one of ours. I asked the City Council to consider the long-term ramifications of this proposal by homeowners unfamiliar and ignorant. Your job as City Council members is to protect our city and its citizens. These homeowners haven't voted for you. They didn't go to your campaign meetings. They haven't even paid an entire year's worth of property taxes, let alone an entire year's worth of water bills. You don't owe these people our hand-grown heritage. You owe us. You owe the people who have lived here for generations, the people who do pay our taxes to you, the people who voted for you, people who support you, and the people who came out here on a Thursday night because they care. Now I challenge you, don't pass this demolition permit. Don't let your names clutter the dustbin of history alongside the words of loss and destruction. Instead, deny this motion. Let's work towards finding a way to preserve it, preserve the vine, and designate it with a protected status. Let generations remember you and let those newspapers write about you and your feats and what you've done for this town. As an archaeologist, I can say with fact and authority that history does not remember those who destroy it, but those who build. Set a precedent in your tenure as City Council as someone who builds, creates, and strengthens our community. Our ability to maintain and honor our past, as well as grow and nurture our future. The Wisteria Vine is a cultural icon and a symbol of our resiliency and our ability to come together as a neighborhood to respect and nurture this place that we call home. I implore you, choose to preserve the vine and protect the roots of our community.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. You said that you were told you couldn't apply for historic designation?
Yes, I was told, this was in regards to a house built in 1900 at 111 North Sunnyside. I was told that the city would not be accepting any new permits for mill status or any new
Mills Act status?
Mills Act status, yes, Mills Act status, and that they would not be accepting any new applications for historic landmarks. And I was told they hadn't accepted any in the recent past, and we're not looking to accept any at all in the future.
I've not heard of that before. Can
Yes.
get an update?
Now, certainly with Mills Act contracts, we accept Mills Act contracts for a certain time period every year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for designated properties. Certainly, we would not say that we are not accepting any applications for landmark status. What did occur under prior city management was we wanted to, that's when we were revamping our ordinance to ensure that everybody who did have a designated property was completing and had a Mills Act contract was completing the terms of their contract. So we suspended new applications until that was done. That has been completed, and we are accepting applications.
So people can apply now?
Yes.
Yeah, and after that, we approved homes for that, and the city council has subsequently approved those.
That's correct.
So
That's
please,
wonderful news.
please apply.
Yes.
Protecting our historic fabric is very important, and so please take your historic house and put it on the historic list. I think that would be fabulous. Thank you.
And do us a favor, and we are not an elected body. We are an appointed body. But the elected body is the city council, and your position about all your references about the vine would be maybe very helpful for them and inspire them to pass some ordinance to protect it.
Okay.
Because we have to abide by their ordinances.
Absolutely. I would love to find out more information about how to go about doing that.
Just what you did tonight, show up to the city council meeting. They have to take public comment just like we do.
Okay.
Yeah, just on, it would be an item not on their agenda likely, unless it happened to be on it. So you just come in like the people did before and talk about this item at your.
Or email them.
But it was-
Their email address is on the city website.
Yeah,
Okay.
you did a very good job.
It's very good, and I commend you. We need more people who are young to come in instead of us oldsters. And I think the city council really needs to hear that people care, because sometimes, we get busy and we forget. But it's, to me, it's sort of amazing that we've got a list of protected, we got protected types of trees, right? But then we've got a list of individual trees, and the Wisteria Vine is not on it? How could that be?
Mm-hmm.
That's mind-boggling to me. So keep pushing. Thanks.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I really
Good.
appreciate
Good
it.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you clap. Anyone else wants to speak on this?
Hello, and thank you for allowing public comment on this. My name is Jean Holm. I live at 199 North Cannon Avenue. And I think it's important to know that I've also been in government service for 40 years, back in Washington, D.C., here in Los Angeles, where I now serve as the deputy mayor of the city of Los Angeles. And I only say that because I know what a difficult situation you're probably in, where you're looking at the laws and the rules on the books, but there's also this overwhelming, compelling issue of what the Wisteria Vine means to Sierra Madre, to our economy, to the people of Sierra Madre, and what we might want to do to be able to fix this issue. And both in compassion to the homeowners, because we want to be a welcoming community and welcome them here, but also to help them understand the significance of the property that they bought. So the point of the Arborist Report, I think, is important to look at. The arborist, with all due respect, has only been an arborist for 4 years and may not understand some of the issues related to the maturity of the vine. The removal of one of the trunks of trunk number 4 may potentially be much more significant than this person is looking at. The arborist was only brought in after the community reacted to the pruning in September of the vine. And I think it's important to get a second opinion and to understand actually what will happen. The other thing that seems to be like we're missing the forest for the trees here actually is it's not just about whether or not the vine could potentially survive this really radical demolition, but the fact is it's the largest flowering plant. We're not on the Guinness Book of World Records. We're not recognized in conjunction with the Wisteria vine because we have a Wisteria vine. It's because we have the largest one. And removing large amounts, just as they did in September, but certainly the vast amount that was portrayed on these slides, is going to jeopardize, obviously, that potential, jeopardize that position, as well as make sure that there's years and years or decades, if ever, that we could get back to it. I think that it's also important to know that the homeowners knew of the significance. It wasn't entirely clear when Ms. Mack was speaking, but I have a copy of the multiple listing service that was posted related to this property. This was what everybody saw. As all of you know, there's a historic plaque, or a plaque in front of the building as well. And here it says, world famous Wisteria house is now on the market for the first time in 50 years. It goes on to say, be a star of the Sierra Madre during the Wisteria Festival, which has delighted visitors for decades. It talks about the fact that it is in the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest flowering plant. I think it's pretty clear exactly what kind of property they bought and what the expectations might be. In addition, I think it's important that, we're a very welcoming community, and over the years, we probably have become complacent with the fact that the homeowners on the Wisteria properties have been very generous with their opening the properties, with caring for this vine, and with really loving it. And it's compelling for us and as citizens and for you as a commission and for council to understand that just because we haven't yet identified this vine as a historic monument or historic landmark doesn't mean that we have lost that opportunity. It is part of public service, part of my 40 years of public service, to understand that we need to step in when problems have happened, when miscommunication has happened, when there's something that's about to be irreparable that's going to happen, and be able to find a compassionate and compelling way to fix it. So I would just compellingly ask you to deny this request and to help the city council get some recommendations on how to make sure that we identify this as a historic landmark.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll bring it back to the commission. I thought we were just gonna find another garage for this project, but it was quite ambitious. Anybody wanna start off dig into it, take one piece of it?
Want me to start?
Go ahead, Bob.
So, we're kind of in a quandary in that if I look at the modifications to the structure by themselves, I have a few qualms. The parking is kind of goofy. I figured they'd come in with something to make it would dig out some dirt to make it work, but they didn't. So the movement of the kitchen from one side to the other does make a lot of sense, because you got to move all that plumbing and stuff, which means you're going to tear up that big concrete patio to do it, and then you don't have a window to look out. But that's interior, and that's kind of not our mission here. So the modifications to the structure, I can live with. I don't find them to be incredibly onerous. I get tripped up with the vine, and given the fact that the anxiety and angst that was caused when it was trimmed, and if you look at the pictures that were in the presentation and the way the vine is now, it got a pretty good haircut. I know that when I hire an arborist to work on the trees at my house, they're very careful to clean their tools because, you know, they can inadvertently introduce something that will, you know, harm the tree in the future, the plants in the future, and it's done with kind of careful supervision. And it's totally rumor that when a person from City Hall came up and asked the people working on the vine before to stop, that there was no arborist present, but that I may be wrong, and I'd like to hear if there was. So I guess my point is, if somebody was going to cut off one of my fingers, I'd like a second opinion. And I realize that the vine is not protected, so we have no legal stay there. My concern is that the arborist, and this is not intended to be any kind of castigation of the report, but the arborist was hired by the applicant. And having been on this commission for many, many years, I can tell you that we've heard from a lot of arborists who have convinced us that putting a swimming pool 4 feet away from a giant oak tree was not going to be a problem. And we're all going, really? Because it seems like a lot of roots are going to get cut. But anyway.
I think they stated, I don't think they convinced.
They stated it. And I have brought up in the past that it might be to the city's advantage to have a list of arborists that are neutral parties that we could refer applicants to or look to ourselves, because we used to have a tree commission and we no longer have a tree commission. And we used to have 7 people on this commission, some of which had more background than others. Now we're down to 5, and I'm not an arborist and I am not a plant guy, but I own a bunch and I hire people to do work on them. And I would, if I could, I would ask the city to pull somebody and give us a second opinion that if you're going to cut off one of the fingers, it's going to be okay. And that the other thing that I would like to put in the stipulations is that the arborist who is given the report will be present when the work is done, because you have the report and then you have the people doing the work. And if the person doing the report is in Santa Monica and the people who are doing the work are in Sierra Madre, they may have miscommunicated, and there may be a condition where somebody just grabs some saw or some tool and next thing you know, there's been a problem. And of all the trees in town, this is not the one that we can afford to be wrong about. And so, you know, the stakes are kind of high. The vine is on our city logo, for God's sakes. So we should, I think, look at it with an additional sense of concern and importance. And it may be that they can bring in a second opinion. The second opinion says, no, if you do this, 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 and this, you know, it will be okay, and it should be supervised, and the people that doing it should do the following. And I think then in that case, we would have performed our due diligence, and that we would have made sure that we didn't rely on one opinion, because God forbid that one opinion is wrong, you know, that person is not in town and will not have to deal with the consequences. So it would be my wish that that we get a second opinion on how that trunk will be removed and under what conditions, and in a supervised manner, so that somebody can sit there and watch and make sure that no shortcuts were taken and no mistakes are made that the city will pay for forever. Because there is a plaque there, and there's, as we all know, there is a great deal of interest and concern about the health of the plant.
If I can make a brief comment. This is actually the second arborist that the applicant has hired at the request of staff. We had them get another arborist because the other one didn't mention the vine in any significant way at all.
I don't know how to read that.
One of the things we do now for historic reports is we have a single source that allows us to compare one report to another. It's also a lot cheaper for applicants. I think we need to do the same thing for arborists. It just is going to make everything much more uniform. I think it'll be cheaper for applicants, and we'll be able to, look at a report and go, oh, I've seen 6 of these reports that are very similar, different circumstances. I know how they work. I know how to take it. I just have a hard time reading that we're going to, they say there's 5 trunks, but there's really 4. Because number 5 is planted in the front, and that's clearly just an add-on later. So you really got 4 trunks. And you're going to take out a quarter of the world's largest blossoming plant, and that's not a significant impact? I have a hard time getting there. It seems pretty significant.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think what makes it the world's largest plant is the house to the north. So saying that you're taking out a quarter of the 5 when
Because
there's
there's other
another
trunks.
7 trunks next door.
Fair enough.
7 more trunks.
The thing is if you, we didn't do the whole thing where we say if we've been there or not at the beginning.
Disclosures, go ahead.
I didn't go to on-site right before this, but I've obviously driven by because I live up on Sierra Meadow, and I've been to the site about once a year for the past 20 years or so. So I'm pretty familiar with it. And there's this thing where you go through the tour of the Wisteria Vine, and you end up in the backyard of this, and you look north, and you see just an expanse of wisteria. And you look at that rendering that they showed of what it's going to look like, and you're going to house stick out, and then the wisteria is tucked into a corner. It's not going to have the same impact at all. I'm pretty mixed about this because I think a lot of the stuff about the house itself is pretty well done. And I like the mid-century modern style. I think the new additions are carried out well. I've always been sort of against the way our code penalizes people for the overhangs, because that, I think, punishes mid-century model style, because you get this overhang that looks really cool, and that's floor area, when nobody in their right mind thinks that that's floor area. So I keep coming back to, if you remember, there was a house that we looked at a long time ago on One Carter, where the people described what they wanted, including these reflecting pools, which sounded fabulous somewhere else. But when you put it right up against the mountain, you just have these like bare swimming pools. And I sort of feel like that's what's going on here. Because, one of our findings, 8A, is thoughtful architecture that is responsive to the specific site. And if you just threw out the site and looked at the house, you'd say, that's pretty cool. But if you think of the house in context that it's got the world's largest blossoming plant on it, and you're going to cut a quarter of the part that's on this property, why? Why don't you work it around in a way so you can preserve that? You could have it in an atrium inside the house, extend that part over, maybe step it down. I just feel like what's going on here is a reasonable desire to meet the needs of the family, which is fine, and it really doesn't matter if they've lived in town forever or they just bought the house. They're still a property owner, and I don't care if they're going to live there forever or sell it, because it's all about the house and the project, right? And I think there's a way that they could accommodate their programmatic desires and needs, have a very nice design, and save the trunk number 4. And I don't see why they wouldn't. And so I would really like not to just deny this project. I would like to continue it and give the applicant an opportunity to look at redoing it so they could save that, and I think, potentially address some of the parking issues as well, because I don't see why they couldn't, while they're digging up big chunks of stuff to move a bathroom, do a little bit more work so they could get some functional parking.
Peggy, anything to add, or tweak what they said, or?
Naive me, I thought this one would be a slam dunk because the architecture is really nice. And I really like the move of the kitchen to the back, to the patio area, and the office in the front.
Without a window?
No, it has windows, clear story, sliding windows onto the patio, and then on the north side, a tall vertical one. It has lots of light. So, and then the office out by the, facing the street is sort of sentinel. It's just a very nice sort of addition to this property, the building. But yeah, I wasn't giving the vine adequate respect in the thinking. And yeah, it is on the logo. It was in the write-up when they bought the house. And it does not meet the unique site properties criteria. I agree for that reason, because that's important. They have to deal with it.
I did go to the house today and spent quite a bit of time walking around there. I thought that a lot of the architecture that was done was incredibly thoughtful. To have such a small window on that southern side, which was the most exposed side to the neighbors, was really thoughtful. The great big windows that could be intrusive are pointed to a house that has no windows pointing back. The very long, tall window on the north elevation where the new kitchen is, that's all covered by the canopy of the next door. That's not going to show a thing. So I thought they nailed the architecture, in my opinion. I've had different experiences with wisteria. It's a fairly resilient plant, as people who have ever tried to remove it from their yard will be able to tell you. I guess where I struggle is that we don't have anything to hang our hat on here. It's not a protected vine. There has been 120 years of it being there that the city could have protected it and didn't. We've been incredibly lucky that there's been such a great steward of it for the last 50 years. As I recall, the reason that the house got rebuilt the way it did was because the last wisteria crushed the other house. This is a weed that grows incredibly fast that is beautiful for the time that it blooms. And so I think balancing the non-destruction of a house under the weight of the world's biggest vine has to be considered as well. The city didn't buy the lot to tear down the house and make it a wisteria only lot, right? So trying to find that balance is where I'm struggling here, because I haven't seen or heard any legal reason that we can deny this project because of the wisteria, and that's challenging for me. We've had lots of different oak trees that are beautiful that we don't require a second arborist report for. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really struggling with the dual treatment that we're applying here. Because if you remove 10 feet of that wisteria, nobody has a problem, and this was a 10-minute meeting.
Yeah, no, I think trimming the vines as necessary to do construction is reasonable. It's removing a trunk entirely. I mean, that trunk is not going to sprout back because it's going to have a building over it.
That's
right?
the only way to stop a wisteria from sprouting, by the way.
You know,
I actually know that from experience.
Right, no, I hear you. I think from a legal perspective, we have finding 8A that says thoughtful architecture that's responsive to the specific site. We have finding 8C that says preservation of natural landscape by such means as retaining protected specimen trees. I guess we could say the vine's not a tree, so it doesn't count, but that seems, I think we can read in that that's worthwhile there. I mean, I sort of feel like if you looked at a property where there was a big oak tree in the middle and you looked at all the setbacks and you tried to figure out how to put a house on, and there was no way you could put it on except for losing that tree. I go, well, you got to build a house. That's the point of the thing. But if you think about the house that we approved on Grandview, where the house was articulated around the oak trees, I think about this and I think, isn't there a way they can articulate this house and the thing to preserve the vine? And I don't think they should just say no or not do it. I like the architecture. I just think if they did a little bit more thinking, I wouldn't be surprised that they could get just as cool, or if not better design, and preserve that fourth trunk. And so I would like to give them that shot. And if they come back and they say, look, there's absolutely no way we could do it, I don't know, but it seems like it could.
Well, I referenced 8B, the concept of reuse, because that, to me, is, yeah, you could build around that. And we already have the example in the architecture of the front of the house where they built around the vine at the front, and it came out looking really well, and it seemed to enhance the architecture and the style. So I don't begrudge them the right to trim it. I don't begrudge them the right to, the applicant brought up safety and fire codes, and I don't begrudge them that at all. My concern is that it is being done in a responsible manner so that the city won't wake up a year from today and suddenly the vine caught some COVID-related bug, and now we all have a problem. This is the only, we have had conversations about trees and on property, and why can't we modify the project to protect the tree? But this vine seems to be on a level all of its own inside the city. I don't think there's anything else in the city that rises to that level of. We just saw one tree on the Alverno property that they're gonna build around that tree, and as well and we all agree that they should, because it's a wonderful specimen. But even that tree does not have the iconic reference that the Wisteria Vine does. There's no plaque on the street to that.
And I think, we talked about the project, the house just to the north, which we approved a renovation and expansion. And I think one of the reasons why we were able to get on board with the minor CUP for the parking was that, well, the option is chopping down some Wisteria Vine to put more parking, right? And so that's not a worthwhile trade, whereas if it were ash tree on some other lot, it'd probably be like, see ya.
Well, I agree, John, because I was going to mention, that's my one, in terms of the culture of the community and it's sort of unwritten laws. We gave them a pass, essentially, on the other end of the spectrum to not have parking that we should have required because of the vine. And I think this property and then one next to it are unique in that regard. So, usually I'm the permissive father that says, hey, I want you to be able to do whatever you want, but I tend to agree that there should be some more thought put into this. And another report. I know we can't really invoke the tree commission just because it's not a protected species, but certainly be nice to get some other authoritative opinion to make sure that we're making the right decision, because in some ways, it may do nothing, but we don't know for sure. I'd rather have someone back that up. So go ahead, Peggy.
I would like to argue that anything large enough to have a trunk and is like 8 feet tall is a tree.
I'll accept that argument.
I don't know.
Yeah, we've passed on a number of designs for buildings that when I drive by, I shake my head. But I think this is one project where we can't be wrong. And at least our due diligence would be a second opinion, and an even better solution would be a modification so that they have a well and they can walk around it, and it can look like it does in the front. There's the house goes around the vine. And I don't begrudge them the right to trim it. That's fine. That's not the issue here. The issue is how it's done and whether it's done safely in the interest of the vine and therefore the history of the city.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to highlight some of the options available to the commission. If the commission feels that rejecting the application is the proper choice here, As Commissioner Hutt pointed out, 8A may serve a basis for that for purposes of the design review permit. The commission can also consider finding number 1 for the discretionary demolition permit that discusses the mitigation measures for a historical resource.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the commission can always come to a different conclusion that was reached, different than the arborist conclusion, because you're an independent body that can come to your conclusions. But if the commission does come to a different conclusion, it needs to base it on something. So there'll need to be facts on the record to demonstrate that the mitigation measures are insufficient. So if the commission does want to pursue that route, probably continuance would be necessary to do some additional research into whether or not those mitigation measures in the Arborist Report are sufficient to protect that plant. Of course, the commission can always move for a continuance. And Commissioner Spears, I noted that you would like a second opinion, or a third opinion, I guess, in this case? Or the
Well,
arborist?
I didn't see the first, but I would like to know that the decision that that it's okay to remove a trunk is not, and this is sort of like a problem with our process as a whole. The applicant gets to hire the expert that says it's okay to do that. And I'm not, I don't have the skills to second guess an arborist. But I would at least like to know that the city did due diligence and had someone other than the applicant's expert to look at it. I mean, in a trial, everybody gets to call their own expert witnesses. And so, I'm looking to make sure that the decision we make is one that we can defend should bad things happen. That's all.
If an additional arborist is to be contracted for, so the applicant knows it'd be an additional cost for the applicant, and of course they would have, because our code doesn't require it, they would have to agree to bear that cost if they want to move forward. In terms of, as Commissioner Hutt pointed out, having some kind of arborist that we sole source these types of projects for, that doesn't require city council approval. That can be done, I believe. That's a staff level decision that can be made. So Director Gonzalez, I think, can look into that and come to that conclusion.
So then it sounds like what might be an option here is to move for a continuance, citing that we don't think that the mitigation factors are sufficient at this time, and that a way to come back and change our minds would either be another independent report that refutes that idea, or a change in the program such that it's no longer required to remove that stump.
Yes, I think the commission can proceed that way.
Yeah, or given the option of coming back with another design.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's what he said
That's
at
what
the
he
end,
said.
yeah.
And I'm okay with either one. I just need to know that if we approve a project that talks about removing 1/4 of the vine on this property, and I take your word for it that they're hard to kill, is not going to be seen in hindsight by someone else as like, well, those are the guys that killed the vine, because that's not kind of where I want to be. It's not where I want to leave it.
Yeah. I don't think anybody here wants to be known as the people who killed the vine, and it is our city treasurer. I proudly wore a badge that had the vine on it, so I'm not against saving the vine.
Okay.
Make no mistake there. So I guess I will go ahead and make the motion.
But
that
before you do, Commissioner, if I could just point out one other alternative available. Of course, another alternative available is to approve the project subject to conditions. Because this is a discretionary permit, conditions can be imposed. Whatever conditions are imposed, in order to withstand constitutional challenge, need to have a nexus to what's being developed, and it needs to be roughly proportional. So just to explain what that means, in this specific case, there is a nexus to the vine because the vine is going to be impacted by this development. And in terms of rough proportionality, think about it in terms of cost. The cost of whatever mitigation measure is going to be imposed needs to be roughly proportional to the cost of whatever this addition or change in the property is going to be. So I just want to point out that beside continuance, the commission also has the option to approve the project subject to conditions if it so chooses. I just want to make it clear.
I'm less in favor of that idea. I'm more in favor of continuing it with the other options. And so I think with that, thank you for that additional guidance. I will see if I can say this right. So I think that I would move to continue discretionary demolition permit 2106 such that we either see better mitigation measures for the removal of the vine or further evidence that it will not threaten the safety and health of the existing vine.
Yeah.
And or as part of that, changing of the plan to preserve the trunk.
Yes.
And I think we should move this to continue to a date uncertain, because I think we need to give the applicant time to really consider that. I think if we do this, well, we just canceled some meetings, but I mean, if we were to do this on December 16th, right, we'd get a rushed response that would leave, I think, people unsatisfied. And I would hope that the applicant would hear a lot of the things that people have come down and said, and the commission have said, and bring us back a project that we'd all be happy to approve. Because I think denying this project is not something I want to do either.
No.
I think there's a lot of good here, and we just need to give it a little bit more good so we can all be happy to approve it.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think the applicant is still on the phone. Should we ask if the applicant is amenable to this path?
Ms. Mock, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Did you hear the sort of the long deliberation and our recommendation?
If I'm not wrong, you guys wanted a secondary opinion as far as the arborist goes, and this is what I got. Is that correct?
And or yeah, to consider designing around that trunk, or finding another opinion that tells us that we won't be suffering from this being causing permanent damage to the vine.
Chair Pevsner,
Yes.
I think one of the concerns was also that the applicant is the one contracting for the arborist, and that concern might not be mitigated if it's the applicant that goes and gets the second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would like to amend the motion to direct city staff to get the second opinion, city staff can do that, but the cost will be borne by the applicant.
And so she has to agree to that. You're saying?
Or
one
we could amend it to
The commission would have to amend.
Well, but could we amend it to a list of arborists approved by city staff? Or suggested by city staff, or is city staff not supposed to recommend people?
Is there a list?
There is not a list, and we generally do not recommend people. When it came to the list that we used to have for historic preservationists, for qualifications, we would ask them to be certified by the Secretary of the Interior standards, creating our new bench, basically, and eventually creating a sole source from that. We can do something very similar as well.
You can. Okay.
Did you understand that, Ms. Mock?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess with the amendment that we amended and continuing to a date uncertain would be my motion.
Give the applicant time to respond.
Yeah, I second that motion.
Can I get that motion again?
I move that we continue to a date uncertain, discretionary demolition permit 21-06 for mitigation of removal of stump 4, is that what it is? of stump 4.
I thought it was number 1
Yeah, it's 4.
It's okay.
on this drawing.
It's 1 on that one, but it's
Keep-
4 in the Arborist Report.
We can fix the numbers here, just.
But it's the one that's, it's
one
the
that's
trunk that's gonna get removed.
Right.
Whatever number we
For
call it.
mitigation of the trunk that is being removed through either an arborist report from a city staff approved arborist or redesign of the project to not require removal of said stump.
I have a question regarding the second arborist report. Is the city going to sponsor the fees that will be needed for this reporting?
Go ahead.
To answer the applicant's question, no, the cost would have to be borne by the applicant.
I'm sorry?
Apologies. The cost would have to be borne by the applicant. The city couldn't finance the cost of a private development.
Okay.
Did you understand that, other than having us just vote on this tonight?
And so the applicant is aware. The applicant also does, like the chair pointed out, have the option to request that the planning commission render a decision tonight. If the planning commission decides to deny the application, the applicant would have to, has the choice of either accepting that denial or appealing it to the city council.
Was that clear? So we're asking you to hire another arborist to, okay, versus just having us vote, and if we vote to deny it, you have the right to appeal it to the city council.
Okay.
So sounds like would you like us to go through with our motion to, date uncertain, to have it looked at again? Either redesign or have an arborist report to reassure us about the vine? Or would you like us to vote? I just want to be clear.
We'll have the arborist, the second opinion for the arborist report.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you finish the motion?
Yes, I think it's
Okay.
waiting for a second.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we have a second. So those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Good, passes unanimously. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your patience as well, Ms. Mock. Difficult. All right, so that brings us to Planning Commission reports. And anybody have anything to do with Christmas? Hello.
Still
Excuse me.
meeting.
Excuse me. Hello. Oh, yeah. We're still
meeting.
We're almost done. Planning Commission reports. Anybody in the Planning Commission have anything during the holidays to report? No, nothing.
Not me.
Enjoy the holidays. Yes. Come out for all the activities at the city, please. That's all I would say. Okay. Planning Community Preservation Department reports. Director Gonzalez.
Yes, as I mentioned before, we would reconvene on January 20th. We plan to bring the R3 ordinance amendments and the church overlay zone for a discussion item before the Planning Commission so we can refine those ordinances prior to recommending adoption to the City Council.
Is that just the R3H or whatever we're calling it, just the higher ones, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it? Wow, okay, very good. Well, then we will adjourn the Planning Commission to January.
Till next year.
Yeah, 20th next year. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to you all.
I want to thank staff for the maps. These are excellent, and they're great reference material.
Yes, thanks again.